So I'm Vinod Kaul. I am a professor at Fostima. I hope to see more of you. Um, my areas of specialization or subjects are really retailing, management of services, and of course business ethics, which is a very new area, uh, which wasn't there when I was in IIM Ahmedabad in the 1970s. But today, of course, it's considered a very vital area to anchor you properly. Uh, but today we will talk about. I hope today's area would be especially interesting and exciting to watch, uh, even if this is not what you're contemplating exactly. Um, as young people, or even people or even old people like myself, it's always good to explore, to see new worlds, to see new opportunities, whether you go along that path or not. So today I'll talk to you about a world which is out there, which of course all of us know about a little bit, but I'll tell you a little bit more about it so that if this interests you and if this is the path that you want to take as far as your professional career is concerned, then my job would have been done to let you know a little bit more about this. And this is the world of fashion. We all know about fashion, and fashion, of course, the first word really that comes to my mind is glamour. Fashion is glamour, but of course, like in all things, there are some things which are upfront, some things which are behind the scene also. So I will go over some of them. Unfortunately, in this webinar mode, we cannot have a regular interaction as we have in the classroom, which I consider very important. In the webinar mode, it will be a one-sided thing. But please do put your questions and on the Q&A over here. So as we go along or towards the end of my talk, which hopefully will be around 40 minutes, I will sort of uh, uh, respond to all this. Okay, uh, let me start by saying that the world of fashion will always be there. The world is changing a lot because of technology, because of new systems, because of new environments. One is the COVID, of course. Um, and of course, technology has killed a lot of industries, um, like the normal taxi, even retail. It's affecting retail in many ways. But fashion is something which will always be there. It's been there for thousands of years, you can say, because fashion is an extension of the human mind and the human identity. Fashion today is not just clothes today is not just covering your torso for protection from the cold, but it is an identity and it's an expression, and it is a measure of conformity also. You're all aware of that, and I'm sure in different degrees we all spend time in fashion, whether it is looking at ourselves 5 minutes in the morning, making your hair, wearing the appropriate thing for what you're going to do, or if you want to make a mark, you want to stand out. Fashion is very much there, and fashion is so complex. Actually, no technology has been able to put the finger, or if we talk of trends, even today, you need the human hand or the human insight to look for trends in fashion, that is. Okay, having said that, um, fashion is very visual, it's very tactile, it is very visible, and you can't talk about fashion without pictures. So I'm going to upload a PowerPoint and I will walk you through. And I hope whether you choose a career in fashion or somewhere else, this will still stay in the back of your mind. So hang on for a minute and let me upload this. Okay, here we are. So I'm calling this an introduction to the glamour industry, because fashion is not just clothes. Clothes is an industry, of course, and fashion is, let's say, the upper end or the upper half of the apparel industry. But apparel is not enough, because uh, uh, fashion covers a lot of things like accessories, luxury, and so forth. So I'm calling it the Indian glamour industry, and we're talking of the top end of fashion. This is a industry I have been associated now for many years, and in fact, my claim to fame, or two bits of fame, is being the head of the Fashion Design Council of India, which runs India Fashion Week. I was the executive director for a number of years. I continue to be on the board of directors, and most of the fashion designers I know them personally, or I've been involved with them, and many of them I sort of admitted them into the fold of the FDCI, and three of them actually I was an advisor to. I don't know if these names. I'm going to say a lot of names so that they start at least getting familiar with you. Um, I was advisor for a long time to JJ Balaya, Rohit Bal, and designer Anjana Bhargav. Um, I was also an advisor to Aza, which is a high fashion retail chain. So if you're buying a langa costing a few lakhs, or perhaps a dress, uh, but even at 30,000, 40,000, this is what he would be all about. Okay, so let's start with the first. Okay, um, I'm really doing this one, of course, for you to explore, but I do find people they realize they have an interest in fashion or in creativity in some way. We all do, but they don't realize it until it's very late. So I say that, and when you select the career that you do, I find in all the interviews I'm doing for admissions, people talk about finance, people talk about marketing, but really down the line, you'll have to focus a little bit more. And my formula is the 1 2 3 formula, as I call it, to make it simpler. Where do you want? One is, of course, you get led by large numbers of people. The second is you really introspect. You first let me get my uh, spotlight. Okay, you sort of introspect, as they say. You introspect, know about yourself. What are your interests? What excites you? What So a lot of this will tell you where you want to go. You know, in this, where do you want to go? So really, this is the starting point. You might not find it on day one, but even if you do on day two, day three, it's never too late. I started by doing physics honors from St. Stephen's. I changed over to IIM Ahmedabad, got into business management. I got into apparel, and then, of course, towards the end, I got into high fashion. And I was quite shocked that I was there, but really, I think I did quite well. I am very well known in the industry even today. Okay, so first step is really knowing yourself, what you want, what excites you, what interests you. Then you have to look outwards. You cannot always look inwards. You need to look out, which is what you're doing right now, actually. I think sometimes more difficult to look inwards. Outward means what are the professional opportunities, what are the various industries, and don't limit yourself to just the FMCG. A lot of us do go there, or financial services industry. So these are very much there. They're glaring in our face, but there are a lot more to that also, which I hope I excite you in the next few sort of slides that we talk about. And of course, so you need to get this knowledge, and this is what I'm doing here. The first part you have to do yourself. The second part, I'm helping you on one side of looking around. Third is you have to get passionate. You have to get passionate with what you're doing. You have to get and sort of put both these two things together. And as I found, and I'm sure you will find, if you know yourself, you know the industry, and you are able to get passionate, you will do much better. It is no longer work, but it is really something that you enjoy. You breathe, you talk, you don't need motivation. So when the chips are down, and there will be many times in your career, that passion will keep you going. And when you have to work very hard, which is very often in in certain portions of your career, you will find that if you are passionate about what you're doing, it will keep you going. Okay, let's move on. So in my time, they were really just if you were doing well, if you're top of the heap, you had a choice of between being a doctor, being an engineer, or sort of being a government babu or a bureaucrat. And a lot of my colleagues and friends went for the IAS and IFS and all that. Um, but today there are a lot of more choices. So today you're lucky people because you can explore the world a lot more. You can change around. There are a lot more opportunities, and I wish I was born again like you. So look, I'm giving just to get you sort of push you around a little bit to think. I'm giving you some alternative careers that people have done and have been very successful. So where should you start? Really, you start with yourself, and you have to give into your heart, as they say. Um, okay, let me start from the left, which is the perhaps for you today, which is the most bizarre. Uh, Vidur Kapoor, and I don't know if anyone of you have heard, but I'm sure you've heard of stand-up comics. In America, they've been there for a long time. In India, now they've been around for a few years. A lot of them are very well, sort of educated. They have to be because they have to speak. They have to stand it up and speak. I think this is one of the toughest jobs because you have to earn your pay each time, because each time pardon me, if you stand in front of a crowd, you have to be excited, you have to be keep them sort of occupied, and you have to have something new each time. Okay, Narayan Karthikeyan, Formula One driver, you have all heard about him. I wish I was in his shoes. Of course, he's not a big educated person, but he decided right after school that this is what he wanted to do, and of course he put his heart into it, and he really reached the top. The third one, of course, all of you know, Harsha Bogle. But how many of you know that he's from IIM Ahmedabad? He's like one of us and like you in terms of being an MBA. He's a sports commentator, and he's more than a sports commentator. He's a figure now. He's a personality. He can talk. He's in great demand, and of course he's doing a great job about it. Um, the fourth is Milind Soman. I know Milind quite well because he started out by being a model. He did modeling in our Fashion Week. I was running India when I was running India Fashion Week. Milind, Milind was very much there, and of course he moved on to become an actor. He's got a sportsman. He's a marathon runner, which is what I am also. I also run marathons like him, 42 kilometers. I just ran one 2 months back, the New Delhi Marathon. Milind Soman, of course, is a big time marathoner. He's an ultra marathoner. He's run 100 kilometers also. And of course, he has gone far, and he has a sports management company. He organizes runs. One of the most famous is the Pink. I don't know if some of you have run in that. He has a Pinkathon, which is marathons for women. They're held across the country, and of course, thousands of people participate in that. So this is an alternative career. Uh, okay, I've got. Okay, Charu says Milan is one of my favorite models. Okay, that sounds good. He's of course not only my one of my uh, he's one of my good friends. Even now, of course, he's very busy now. But when he comes to Delhi, very often we do get together. Not the COVID situation, and I have run with him, of course, from time to time. Of course, he is of course a celebrity. Um, recently, I think about 3 years back, he married a girl 3 years, Ankita Convert, 30 years his junior. Well, if you're a marathoner, I think you remain very attractive for many more years. Okay, so this is one up for. Okay, here are some interesting other careers, and I like to talk of Rahul Varghese. He's also from Ahmedabad, of course, a good friend of myself and a lot of the people at First Timer. He has, in fact, spoken. He has been a visiting sort of a speaker at all that. um, he had a classic career after IIM Ahmedabad, Hindustan Unilever, typical, Motorola. Okay. And then when he was around 48 years old, he resigned. He resigned from Motorola at the height of his career to do what? So that he could run. He was a runner. Of course, when he was with Motorola in Chicago, he started running and he runs marathons. For those of you who are not aware of it, a marathon is not running down the road making 2 rounds. Marathon is 42.2 kilometers. And of course, he was much younger to me. And when he resigned to run full time and start a company called Running and Living, this is, of course, a book also is written, Running and Living, about life being having a balance in life, about conservation, about how to live green, how to, and of course, he started with the passion. Of course, these I'm talking of extreme. He started with the passion, and and he did events, and he became my coach because I started marathon running at the age of 58, and at the age of 59 I ran a full marathon, 42 kilometers, and at the age of 50 I ran a ultra marathon, 50 kilometers. And of course, a few years back, I ran my longest run, which was 72 kilometers. All of you can do it also, by the way, if you apply here. But Raul Varghese gave up a cushy job, and his passion was, he said, Vinod, I want 1 million people to run in India, 1 million people. Marathon running has been big in America for a long time. But in India at that time, we are talking of the 1990s, very few people ran. He started the first running club in Gurgaon, among the first in India. And of course, today you see them all over. So this is okay. I've got a couple of more comments. Okay. Shubham, okay, impressive that you ran 72 kilometers. Yes, but so can you, Shubham, so can you. You can also run 72 kilometers. And I ran this about 3 years back, so it's not too far back. Okay, another one of my interesting colleagues is Varija Bajaj. In a sense, she was very much like you. When I was heading the Fashion Design Council, I have this, the executive director, this girl lands up in my office. Her name is Varija Bajaj. And I thought, what she, I'm very busy, what she wasting my time? She said, I'm doing my MBA, Mr. Kaul, and I want your help. I said, why? What can I do? She said, I want to do a business plan for running a fashion company which markets fashion, high fashion and all that, because I think there's a future here. So I said, fine, I don't have the time, but I'll pass you on to one of our designers and other people. And that's what she did. So I didn't see too much of her. So like you, this is her intern. She was, uh, she's actually a girl from Miranda, and she did her MBA from Sheffield, University of Sheffield in the UK, and she came back to India to do this internship. Of course, her father is well off; he's in business, and I forgot about her. But when she came back, she actually set up a business based on her plan. She set up a business, and I said, how are you going to run it? She said, very simple, and this is what you do. She's not a fashion designer, so she sort of hired fashion designers. She hired a chief designer, assistants, and of course her father helped her financially, but really she was the sort of brains behind it. So she started running it for 1 or 2 years. She ran it. It wasn't easy. It was very tough. She would come and meet me. I would give her a lot of advice, but of course she had to bell the cat. Then She told me after 2 years, Mr. Kaul, I have sacked my chief designer. I said, why? How will you manage? He said, I'm going to become the designer. I think they're doing it all wrong. Imagine the guts of the lady. She's a business entrepreneur. She sacks her chief designer and she said, I'm the chief designer now. Of course, she had an inclination for fashion and design, and that's why she made a business plan. She said they're doing it all wrong. They don't have the pulse on the trends in India. They're talking about fashion in France, fashion, international fashion, but in India, I go to parties, I go to other things, I see what they wear, I can do that. So I just need some junior designers to sort of put it together, but I will give them the direction. And that's what she did. And her business blossomed after a year. Her business blossomed couple of years. And of course, I left the FTCI, and then I urged, she applied for a member as a designer in the FTCI. Imagine someone who has done their MBA. At first she was refused because she made I looked at her application. I told her a designer does not give a very neat application. It should be badly written. It should be all that. She had written like a project report, and people and in the committee will not see is okay, what is the difference between fashion designer and I fashion designer? uh, See, fashion designer is anyone who calls himself a fashion designer. This is what Varija did. And of course, it's more than that. If people are willing to buy your fashion, you are then you are a fashion designer basically. I fashion designer, I don't know what you mean. I fashion designer is there are a lot of people. As anyway, as we get into my presentation here, you will see that there are many people in the fashion industry, and the fashion designer is not necessarily the most important person, as you can see with Varija Bajaj. Today, the fashion designer in a big company is a fashion director. He may not be doing the designing himself. He may have a team of designers. He may give fashion direction, really. So you break up the design process into simpler parts also. Okay, so it's not an easy answer to your question, Shubham, but there are different types and levels of fashion designers also. So anyway, Varija Bajaj finally got accepted as a fashion. She's registered with the FTCI as a fashion designer. She has her own label called Varija Leila, and about 3 years back, she launched another label called Office and You, which is targeting really the office wear, for women in business. So you can see her business background was an asset because she's running the company. And of course, she is given more vent to her design and creative instincts. She's not necessarily the best designer, but as we will see, it is not enough to be a good designer. You have to be a good business person also, and I'll explain that in just a little while. And of course, she used her business sense in making a label called Office and You, which is directed to all those women who are professional women who are working in business. Okay, let's move on. Here are three more people. Again, out of interest, I'll go through it quickly. Um, Tarun Taliani, he's one of the top Indian fashion designers. He's tops for the last 15, 20 years. Tarun, a lot of people don't know that. He's actually an MBA. He's an MBA like you and me. And he went to Wharton School. He did his MBA from the internationally acclaimed, famous Wharton Business School. But there he found some creative talents. He went to IFT, which is the best known fashion school. But again, as I said, the business doesn't leave you, the business management doesn't leave you. And he's the founder of Ensemble, the among the first Indian multi-designer fashion retail chains. Ensemble, which is in Hoskas village here. It's in Bombay. It's been one of the big milestones in Indian fashion. So this is Tarun Taliani. He's very intelligent. You can discuss anything under the sun with him. And of course, he calls himself JJ Balaya. JJ Balaya was all out to be a CA. And that's what he told me. I was his advisor for a year, and he said he was doing his articleship as a CA in Jaipur. And one fine day, he got up and he said, I can't do this anymore." And he left, and he never went back to doing his CA. He went to NIFT, became a fashion designer, and of course, he's a very well-known fashion designer. Here's someone else from Ahmedabad, Ravi Thakran, and I know him very well. Of course, much my junior, because Ravi Thakner joined LVMH, Louis Vuitton, uh, Moet Hennessy, or LVMH. This is the largest luxury conglomerate in the world. It is worth it's over it's a few $1 billion in size. He, of course, joined it in Singapore, and he started and invest. He's more in the finance side. So you can see what I'm trying to get at is fashion abuts many different other professions. That's how I've got into fashion. I'm not a fashion designer, but I'm very well known in fashion. I've been advisor to fashion designers, and this is where the opportunities lie. Ravi Thakran, of course, is the founder of L Capital Asia, which is LVMH's investment arm based out of Singapore. And he used to come regularly to India and Fashion Week. And they have made few hundred crores investments in Indian fashion designers, and um, and of course, including Fab India, they've invested about 50 crores in Fab India, and of course other designers also. So and of course he used to take a great interest, of course, in fashion. So okay, this comes to the point that I'm making, that actually fashion is a split personality. While fashion designers and fashion glamour is at the front end, at the back end, there are really two sides to fashion. There is the creative side, by all means, and there is, of course, there's the business side, and one can't live without the other. Fashion designers are not do not make clothes to hang in museums. You don't see, with one exception, I think, you don't hang clothes in the museum. They have to be saleable. So it's not a great fashion designer can be a failure if he's not marketed well, and a very poor designer, as we will see later on. Even an ordinary designer can become a great business success, like I would say. We will talk about some of those designers down the line. So there is a business of fashion, and there is, of course, the creative side of fashion. And you can be very sure why, when the FTCI was formed, which is a design, which is a which is like NASCOM, and they were looking for a head. They didn't take one of the designers to be the head because they know he would do a bad job. They picked up someone from management or someone from IMA, like I was, and of course, I got into my sort of role very quickly. Okay, let's talk about. I will give you a deep dive into fashion. Some of it you know, but some of it you can sort of add on to and sort of hope to get a feel of. So, fashion, of course, fashion has many feelings. Fashion is very visible. And if you do, one of the studies tried to bring out words associated with fashion. There is glamour, vanity. These are the words that are used. Design, talent, self-expression. Very often it's bizarre, outrageous, fashion weeks, socialites, media. But there is a backside to which is really the hard work. So if you see in Vogue someone dressed to the last little bit in just the right clothes, but you can know someone out there in the back has really been pushing up this rock up the hill so that you get one shot at what fashion looks like. So, but whatever it is, as the point is, fashion, there is never a dull moment. If you're the type who wants to look for excitement, interest, something happening, fashion is certainly the world for you. In a sense, fashion is always invented every season because you have new collections, new things, you have trends, you have changes happening all the time. Okay. Um, these are my iconic pictures of fashion, which is Fashion Week, fashion shows, that is. You have a runway, you have people sitting there. Lakme India Fashion Week, which is what I was running, is among the largest at that time. You had 500 people sitting there. And of course, the moment that I have, the fashion models walk to the end of the runway, if you have seen it on TV or real life. And when the fashion model reaches the end of the runway and turns around, you have a jungle of about 50, 60 photographers, and all of them suddenly, as she reaches the end, start clicking, and you see this like a Christmas tree of lights because all the flashes go on. And when I saw this, I was awed, and I said, yes, this is fashion. This is what makes fashion exciting. And used to happen 20 years back. It happens today. So this is what the glamour of fashion is all about. Okay. Um, some of the things which happen behind the scene which we forget, and I think the biggest aspect of fashion is really fashion communication, and this is where a lot of you perhaps can have a piece of the action, as they say. It is interesting, in Fashion Week we used to have buyers, we used to have invitees, we used to have media, we used to have government officials. What do you think was the biggest contingent? Which category of people was the biggest? It's the media. We used to register 400 people for Fashion Week, and we had to limit. And the biggest section, fashion sort of hall can only hold 500. So about 250 to 300 would be from the media, and media is in terms of fashion journalism, press conference. This is what I got involved with, and of course, page three. These are some of the things. I started becoming on page three. I used to be photograph. I used to be. I've done during Fashion Week. I used to do at least a dozen interviews in the day, in one day, and both on TV and newspapers and other things, because that's part of the lay of the land. Okay, fashion shows, events, exhibitions, and of course, visual presentation is big in fashion, and word of mouth, celebrities, socialites. So this is all part of the mela, which is what fashion is defined by. I'm going to go a little faster, perhaps even leave out. We won't go into the history of fashion because if you're interested, you'll read more about fashion history in India. Except to say, I like to say, fashion is current. Fashion is not heritage. We may have a big heritage of design, which is very good. And a lot of fashion designers call themselves revivalists. They take old heritage things, but they have to convert it into something new. They have to give their own interpretation to it. And we have many people, some of the names you have heard. Ritu Kumar, Tarun Taliani started the first and song. And of course, we have Satya Paul, Rohit Khosla. These are, and of course, Manish Malhotra, which we will talk about again. This, as I said, fashion industry is growing in India by leaps and bounds. It's growing by 25, 30% annually. Um, and at the top end, we are talking of something like an annual turnover of 10,000 crores. These are some of the other big names, Shantanu and Nikhil. Recently, there was an investment in Shantanu and Nikhil of about 100 crores from one of the investors. So this is what, in my time, I started to do, is to get the industry and the fashion industry together. This is what happened in America, what we call alliances or joint ventures between industry and fashion designers, which is not easy because designers think in different way, and of course industry thinks in a different way. But you really need a mix of both. Okay, um, we are going to move on so that we cover. Fashion is, of course, part of the glamour industry, and glamour industry is very big. USA is perhaps number one. It used to be Japan number two, but China has, imagine, China has taken over. And today in China, even office secretaries carry Gucci bags, and and they will skip their lunch, save money, just like we do. When Reebok came in, I found students saving their pocket allowance so they could buy a Reebok or a Nike, or whatever. So really, this is the direction. If India continues going strong, perhaps after about 10 years, we may become number five in the consumption of luxury in the world. Okay, so this is where we are. Uh, Okay, I'd like to talk about a bit. Fashion is no longer, high fashion is no longer esoteric. All designers who are very successful now made their name from starting with couture. In India, wedding wear is couture. In the West, you have Armani, you have Versace's making very expensive store. In this case, the langa can cost 6 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 12 lakhs even. But a smart designer goes down the line. They go into couture is one of a kind. Diffusion is limited edition. You might just have a dozen pieces. You will these are sold through very exclusive boutiques. But successful designers go into Pret, okay, which is ready to wear, which is sold through department stores. So people like Armani have a black label which Armani designs himself, but he makes his money not through the black label, but Armani Exchange and Armani, which is sold by through department store. That's where they get their numbers. Story of a very successful, and yet I would say, and please don't quote me because I know her very well, is Anita Dongre. She was a very ordinary designer. She was there, but her brother, who was an MBA, came from the US. He set up a company to market her collections. Of course, he did a very good job by going down the line. They said, of course, they got investors, and they set up Global Desi, which I think a lot of you know. They sell today. They're selling about 500 crores. Wow. I hats off. And it had to be her brother, who is an MBA from the US, and her, of course, and she's just another designer actually. And her label is, of course, Anita Dongre, and this is her other label. But this is where they make the money. There are over 150 global desi shops across India and the Middle East. Okay, uh, so this is where the need for people from management comes in. Anita Dongre would never have been successful without her MBA brother. Let me put it that way. These are some designers which some of you may know about, but I'm doing this just to uh, sort of increase your sort of knowledge and of this. I got some more questions. Okay, no, this is the same old questions. Okay, fine. Um, Everyone knows Ritu Kumar. Ritu Kumar is one of the original doing of designers. Um, she lives here in Gurgaon. She's got a farmhouse very close to where I stay. And of course, I always ask this. I'll let you guess who's Ritu Kumar here on the left or on the right. Okay, I'll give you a prize of 100 rupees. Both are, of course, wearing Ritu Kumar. So she's, of course, she's moved down the line. She makes wedding wear, but she also has a Pret label, which she calls Label. Label is her Pret label, and she is one of the cornerstone of Indian fashion design, modern fashion design. Okay, and she was, of course, the queen of the block print and the Zardosi. And she's among the first designers to challenge her people, her copiers in court, and won the case. People used to copy her designs and her prints all over the place. Okay, another is JJ Balaya that I talked to you about. He was a failure as a CA, but as a designer, he is very impressive. I was a advisor to him for a year. He is very royal, uh, and he makes very bridal clothes. And you must go to one of his fashion shows because it's not just clothes. The whole place is like drama. There is music, there is audio visual effect, there is music. Um, and there is part dance, part this, part clothes. It is really an experience. So really, fashion is really something beyond clothes. And of course, he sort of uh, what is Zardosi? Okay, I'm, I'm afraid I'm not going to answer that. You will have to look at Zardosi is a sort of a sort of filament which is woven into the clothes, which gives you the shiny stuff. If you see some of the wedding wear and other things, they use this either silver or gold thread. Okay, it's a synthetic thread which is woven into clothes and gives it that shine and other things, which you will find like in this. You can see a lot of Zardosi also has been used over here. Okay, so this is and of course this is JJ Valaya. You at the end of the show they do their customary bow. Um, Rohit Bal is the big bad boy of designers because he's actually from he's a Punjabi but from Kashmir, close to where I come from also. He's very much cantankerous and yet loud. A lot of the designers' personality goes out on their clothes, and that's why the more cantankerous, the more outrageous he is, the more popular he becomes. And I remember in one of my fashion weeks in Bombay, at the end of it, typically he took all his staff to this bar. He got drunk. They removed all their clothes, and they had to call the police. And of course, it was in the papers, and he became even more famous. Okay, so that's how it works. This is balance is his Pret label, so that's how designers do today. Rohit Pal is his couture label, and we have Sabyasachi Mukherjee. Sabyasachi. Actually, I can take a vouch that I helped Sabyasachi become what he is, because he did his first big fashion show during when I was head of India Fashion Week. Normally, we don't allow new designers to sort of showcase, but he was very talented and we designed. We had a committee meeting. We said, okay. And of course, the media picked him up very quickly. And of course, he never looked back. He's very big. If you have been reading the news, just last year, his business was valued at 400 crores, and he's got an investor who is taken 51%. 51% means he does not own his own name anymore, so they can throw him out also, which is what happens in Europe and other places very much so. This is where there's a very close, intimate mix between business and fashion. And I must thank him for meeting Bollywood actresses, because he was very close to them. He would call them over, and since I was head of the FPCI, I would also sort of meet them. Uh, okay. Manish Arora has a different story. He was a flop in India. He was a fashion designer, and these are the sort of clothes he used to make. Now, would you wear one of these? So, I used to tell him, why don't you make Indian clothes, langas, and he said, "No, Vinod, I can't do that. This is coming from inside." And of course, but finally, we got an exchange program with Paris Fashion Week, and we sent him out. We said, "इधर तो कुछ नहीं कर रहा था, उधर भेजते हैं." And he was the first Indian designer to show at the Paris Couture Week, and he was an instant success. He made massive. He's in big demand in Paris, and of course, he later came to India. He started an Indian line, which of course which sells at Biba. It's called Indian, but really, where he is known, where he is respected, where he is actually of all places in Paris. So this is Manish Arora, of course, a wonderful person that he is. And who hasn't heard of Manish Malhotra? He comes from that clique of designers, um, which are known as Bollywood. There's an intimate relationship between Bollywood and fashion design. So a lot of the designers, even Sabyasachi now designs for movies and other things and so forth. And of course, Manish Malhotra is also, and of course, because of him, I was also able to meet Charu and a lot of other designers, a lot of Bollywood actors and actresses, and all that. Okay. Uh, in many ways, a designer, when he sort of he has it is difficult for a designer to run his business, because it's not enough to be a designer. You have to know how to market it, you have to know how to run a factory, so the best arrangement is really where there's a joint venture between designer and companies, and this is what is happening in India today also, much like the West. These are the things which challenge design, fashion design, and which is what you and I can provide, and which I have been providing as advisor and otherwise, finance and investment, management skills, retail, infrastructure, administration, uh, and of course, a lot of other things. Okay. Uh, Alliances is one big thing. Manish Arora, when he came back, he had joined up with Biba, and they formed a label called Indian, which is selling through his stores, through Biba stores. Raghuvinder Rathod, one of my good friends who is out of Jaipur, he belongs to the sort of the royal family there. This is just 6-month-old news. He has been a very good designer, but a small designer, Raghuvinder Rathod. So just 6 months back, uh, an investor in the form of uh, Hermelio Xenia. This is a this is a Italian brand which sells menswear. They sell suits which cost 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, and so they needed Raghuvinder Rathod is famous for his bandgala and Indian bandgala, like what he's. This is Mr. Rathod himself in one of his showrooms, and of course Xenia is the licensee for Xenia is Reliance. So Reliance has, you can say, invested in Raghuvinder Rathod about they say about 50 crores for about 25% of his company. Okay, so things are happening in India, and of course, on that. Okay, we will. We don't have time to go into a lot of details. I hope I have made. Um, so there are a lot of things. Okay, so what sort of careers can you do in fashion? Um, okay, okay, I've got another column there. Okay, fine. uh, I put this arrow because fashion has a full spectrum from the creative to the managerial side. And it starts from apparel designing, which is what a designer is. And perhaps very few, there may be one or two of you who finally see that this is their line, like Warija Bajaj did. But accessory designing, hair and makeup, this requires a lot of creativity. But um, we have had an instance in IIM Ahmedabad where one of the IIM Ahmedabad graduates, he went into modeling. Of course, modeling is not, you don't do modeling for the rest of your life. You do it for the first 10 years. Then you get into related fields. So modeling, styling, choreography is where the number of people, this is where management styles, because choreography means managing a show, managing resources, and of course being sensitive to creativity also, but you're not the creative, you're partly creative, partly managerial. Then event management, this is big, as you know. Event management is big, the number of event management companies, and the really big thing is retail. Retail is, after food, fashion is the biggest category that is retail. Fashion is what makes retail click and work. So there's a very intimate relationship with retail, and that's why I am in retail also. Merchandising is the heart. Again, I've got some more. This thing, merchandising is part of retailing. It's a very important thing. A lot of people with MBA get into merchandising in companies like Shopper Stop and so forth. Public relations, as you have seen, communications, out of which fashion is very amenable to public relations, and a lot of work is done there. Photography, journalism, exporters, there are a lot of export houses, and of course, buying houses. I'm just focusing on a few things. Retail is very big, as you can see, with fashion. One of the areas is store management. I was in Bata's also, and Bata has 1,400 stores. I was in merchandising actually. In Bata's, I was into non-footwear items. We used to run a line of sportswear and other things. Store management is one area, but really the big thing in retail is merchandising. because this is the heart. Actually, this is the heart of retailing. What is your line selection, the quality control, the presentation, which is in the form of visual merchandising, inventory control. I first went to Canada. I got in. That's how I got into fashion. The first thing they put in front of me, I said I don't know anything about fashion. They said you don't need to. They put me in front of a computer and they said you just handle inventory control, how much money to spend, how much, what sort of quantities, how to distribute, and that's where I really started, and that is the heart of management. So, very quickly through it. Merchandising is the heart of retailing. This is what makes companies like Lifestyle either be successful or failures. Um, Fashion journalism is very interesting, and as you can see that this is fashion communication. Even you have Queen Elizabeth here with the editor of Vogue UK. This is Anna Wintour. Um, a movie was made about her. I don't know if you have seen that. Um, you might have heard of Miss Malani. This is blogs and other things. These are two famous people who are very much there. One is Vineet Jain. He's one of the promoters of Times of India. He's very much into fashion. He used to come and at my time, I think he slowed down a bit. He used to attend the fashion shows, fashion weeks, and so forth. And this is, of course, at that time, Mr. Mirchandani, he's the head uh, of Shopper Stop. Again, a very close friend and colleague of mine. Um, okay, fashion photography is another big area, and some of the big names are Atul Kasbekar. This is part of fashion communication. You can say choreography is hard-nosed people like Rashmi Virmani. She's not a designer; she's a choreographer, and she runs a business. Very strong woman. Aparna Bahal. We used to pay designers 1 lakh per show. Show would last around 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and they would do 15, 20 shows during fashion week. And we would pay them a lakh. We would pay them lakh just for choreography. Okay. Uh, so this modeling, as we said, Ujwala Rawat is of course she models in Italy and she lives in New York. Jessie Randhawa, this is Jessie Randhawa. She started from a small town in Rajasthan. She has become a big fashion model here. And of course, we have Milind Soman and his second wife, second young wife, I should say. Hair and makeup, you might have heard of Ambika Pillai. They run businesses. Javed Habib, they have a chain of hairdressers, 100 and so forth, 100, They are very big and they run almost a business empire, you can say. Uh, this is, of course, Rohit Bal along with uh, Ambika Pillai. Okay. Um, Fashion Design Council of India is you. If you get into fashion, you will know more about that. This is the NASCOM of the fashion industry. I had the good fortune of becoming the executive director, and of course, uh, this was very interesting and exciting. I jumped on the deep side of the pool, and of course, I made great friends in the fashion industry. This was the article which came out when I joined. There's a write up about me, and of course, I was very much on page three and the media for the next few years. While I was there, I'm still associated with the fashion industry. um, I still keep in touch. I write, uh, and of course, this is the role of fashion councils. I'm not going to get into that. Um, but there are a lot of opportunities in related areas. These are foreign brands. If you really start, I won't get into that. But if marketing wise, if you're looking at couture, you have below high fashion, you have premium labels like Zara, Ralph Lauren, Canali, and all that, where there are opportunities for us, because these are very good experience, very professionally run companies, uh, and so forth. Okay. And fine. So I would like to leave you there. So if you feel creativity is your area, it doesn't mean becoming a fashion designer, but you get knocked over by being sensitive. You want to be in an area where there is a lot of creativity happening, not necessarily by you, where there is room for self-expression. There are loads and loads of professional opportunities like I had. And of course, there is also a lot of entrepreneurial opportunity. You can do things on your own. You can, and of course, never dull moment. Okay, so this is really the fashion industry as I would like to present it to you. Um, where does Valencia stand? Yes, Valencia is a premium label, certainly a foreign label. In India, they're small, but in Europe, of course, they're very big. Okay, so that's where it is. There are many brands like that, and of course, India is the hot country, hot market, because US and Europe things are getting saturated, and India is where the growth is happening. Okay, and India is unique in the sense that yes, we are open to Western influence, but we have our own heritage also, and that's why new forms of hybrids have come in, like Indo-Western sort of clothing, which is a combination of both. And this is where opportunities lie. Okay, so I really come to the end of my presentation. If you have any more questions, I will certainly be happy to take them. Or even if you think of questions down the line, you can send them to me. And of course, as I said, our rapport through First Timer really starts now. And I'm very much there. And of course, we will meet when college starts, and certainly in your sort of third semester, uh, you will be probably in one of my classes. Okay. So with that, I will take your leave. I hope you found this interesting and exciting. And as I said, right now, I'm just trying to get your appetite moving. Okay, thank you, Piyush, for giving me a very positive feedback. I'm happy to hear that. Feedback is very essential in management. It is very essential personally for anyone. And if I made a little difference to your future and what you would like to do, I'm all the happy for it. So with that, I will take your leave and I wish you all the best. Okay. Bye bye.